People swear up and down and claim all the time that hell and the devil and Satan is under dirt, that he's underground, living under there, chilling in a fiery pit of hell. But what's interesting is that's not what the Bible says, that's not what the Torah says, and that's definitely not what the Quran says either. This is another one of those really fascinating times where you look across every religion and it all says the same thing, and I really believe that the devil is in the ocean. And to expand on that, I believe the government's trying to contact him as well. They've done some silly stuff in the ocean alongside NASA that is going to blow you away. So over the past 3 to 4 months, this has been sitting on my mind, like in my frontal lobe, in a important spot of my brain, just rattling my thoughts consistently. And so I've been digging and slowly chipping away and doing more and more research. And I've found some very crazy stuff along the way, including what our government has done in the ocean. Now, I'm not talking about just like standard ocean research. They involved NASA in this. So the first thing we're going to jump into is the government involvement with the ocean, because I think this is really weird. It's really deep and there's a lot of different moving parts that I got to get into. After that, I'm going to break down all the religious context and explain why I feel like the devil is down there. So I guess the first part we're going to talk about is why it's even important in the first place, and the fact that the government is playing with something that the devil resides in. Now, before we continue, yes, I am referencing Shia Hadith, Sunni Hadith, Christian literature, all of it. And I'm going to continue to do so in probably a lot of videos. I've noticed this has outraged a lot of people. They want to put me in a box. I don't fit in these boxes, guys, and I'm not ever going to go into one. You can throw whatever label you want on me, but that doesn't mean I'm that. Yes, I am a Muslim man. I took my Shahada years ago. I participate in every single Ramadan. I pray multiple times a day. And I study and recite the Quran daily. But just because you want me to follow a certain path doesn't mean I'm going to do it. And this is one of the beautiful moments where you look across multiple religions and they're all saying the same thing. With all the division going on in the world, when we have moments like this where we can agree on something, we need to focus on this. There's too much debate culture, too much division going on, and I'm just sick and tired of it. I don't want to add to the division. So when we do have moments where everybody believes the same thing, let's focus on that from sometimes. We need to focus on those parts because the world is already a negative place. We don't need to add more to it. So chill. Now that the Salafis and Wahhabis are all triggered, let's jump into this. Let's get to the cool stuff. So when researching for this, the government programs that stood out the most are Sealab 1, 2, and 3. This is at a time where NASA was involved in the ocean and studying the ocean a lot. You guys have all heard the saying where they're like, oh, we know more about the surface of Mars than we do the ocean. All kinds of crazy claims that we know more about space than we know about our own planet, especially the ocean. Now, this has been weird to me, and it's been weird to a lot of people, I'm sure. Why are we studying space when we don't even know what's going on the planet we live in? Now, me personally, I don't think space research is real. I think space research is a lie, but that is going to be a later video. There's a lot more to that. But we're going to start with Sealab 1 because they actually started in the Bermuda Triangle, the Devil's Triangle, the Devil's Gate. There's a ton of different names for this. So I'm sure you guys have heard of the Bermuda Triangle and all the crazy things that go on there. There's tons of different conspiracy theories. But a lot of this came out of the 1940s. So there was this operation, it was called Flight 19. There was a group of planes, torpedo bombers specifically, that went missing. This was in 1945, and they sent a search party out and they said their compass and all magnetic instruments were acting wonky and they were never able to find the planes. They were never able to dig up what happened. So in recent times, this is what kicked off the weirdness of the Bermuda Triangle. Now, Sealab 1 was in 1964. So fast forward a little bit and this is where we started digging around there, at least publicly, at least what we've released and what I can get my hands on. Now, don't be surprised by this, but NASA was involved. Now, I know you guys have all heard NASA means to deceive in Hebrew. This is true. I'll pop a thing up. There's people claiming that this is false and that's a lie. And you ask AI and you ask Google, they say, oh, this isn't the case. But I'll bring up the whole etymology or whatever it's called, the whole word breakdown, so you guys can see what I mean. It's true. NASA does mean deceive in Hebrew because of the root of it. But Sealab 1, there's not too much funny stuff going on. It wasn't a big project. They didn't do a whole lot. They were just testing to see if we can live underwater. And this also supposedly helped NASA so they can figure out how to keep humans alive in places with no oxygen. Now, the name you guys got to remember from this is Scott Carpenter. This is the man that was involved, and I believe this is the man on the inside. This is the guy that the government planted to start messing with things in the water to try to get contact with demons, jinn, shaitan, the evil stuff bumping around there. And then fast forward a bit, Scott Carpenter being involved in the other ones, Sealab 2 and Sealab 3. Now, these were off the coast of California. Now, unfortunately, there's not too much documents released on Sealab 1, and maybe it's because they didn't record all of it, or maybe because they wanted to hide what was there. But Sealab 3 is the one I want to kind of dig into more, because there was reports of sabotage, actual sabotage. And that makes me really curious, is like, why? Why was there sabotage? Why would somebody want to sabotage research in the ocean? What were they covering up? Now, all the Sealab expeditions involved NASA through Scott Carpenter, and then the Navy, the U.S. Navy. And through the U.S. Navy, one of the main figures that were involved in these projects was Barry Cannon. Now, unfortunately, Barry Cannon actually lost his life during Sealab 3. And this was due to the sabotage, or at least it's been claimed that it was due to the sabotage. I can't say definites, but you guys know what I believe. Now, what's really weird is this seems to be covered up. They're really trying to hide the sabotage fact, because when you look it up on Google, nothing comes up. And you have to do a lot of digging actually to get anything to come up at all. Whenever I switch over to DuckDuckGo, I can actually get a chunk of articles now. Now, fortunately, the New York Times actually has an archive of all their information. So I found a news article from 1969 that talks about the sabotage, how Barry Cannon lost his life due to this. And if you do more reading and do more digging, you can actually see the correlation between NASA and the Navy, and the NASA members not wanting the Navy to come out with all this information, that they don't want them to know. Oh, of course, I'm sure you guys understand, but these people answer to different people. Sure, at the tippity top, it's all the same thing, but directly above them is a little bit different. And there's a pretty heavy consistency with military members, like lower ranking or just standard military members, trying to come out and talk publicly and tell the truth to people. But whenever they go to do this, they get into trouble, or they lose their life. Now, NASA, on the other hand, is a little bit different. None of these people ever come out and just release all the information. All their information seems to be muddied quite a bit. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because this was actually released recently. There's something new that just came out. So I'm sure you guys have been seeing all the information about UAPs. They changed it from UFO to UAP for some reason. They just want to change the name. I don't know. But there's been a lot of talk about it in Congress. Well, what's weird is Tucker Carlson's podcast just interviewed somebody from Congress. I believe he was some kind of politician, and he did a whole podcast talking about aliens, UFOs, UAPs. Well, anytime somebody from government says alien, I know they mean jinn. Jinn, demon, shaitan, these are aliens. I don't believe there's something from other planets buzzing around all over the place. But in this podcast, what kind of caught me off guard, because I was already got everything together to record this video, is the fact that he started talking about the ocean. He started to talk about things that they saw under the water, things that are moving at 200 miles an hour, that it's impossible for physical things to do that speed. And they even go to the point of mentioning that if they shot like a 30-06 or some kind of high-powered rifle in the water, that it couldn't even do those speeds. So physical matter, it's not possible. We can't do that. Anything we have on hand, that's not possible. But something like jinn, something that's just matter, something that's energy, that's a different story. There's a different set of rules that apply to these things. Jinn can move at that speed. Jinn can do what they do. We don't fully understand them. God's the one that understands the jinn the most. But for what we have on hand, they are the ones that have the ability to move like that. Now, this is another one of those cases where military members are telling this guy so he can get the information public. Meanwhile, he is scared for his life to be silenced. He talks about it, how he's scared to end up in a freezer somewhere in the middle of the wilderness. That was his words. And he's scared because he's telling the truth about the situation. Now, regardless on how you feel about Tucker Carlson, I recommend checking that podcast out. There was a lot of mind-boggling information. Now, whether you decide to trust the politician or not, that's on you. I'm still hesitant myself. But what he talked about aligns with the other things we have. Now, let's jump into some of the biblical and religious texts, because this is where it all ties together, it all comes together and starts to make a lot of sense why I'm yapping about all this different government stuff. But one last thing, I forgot to mention it earlier. It's no surprise that I believe believe the government works with demons, or at least high-level government. Maybe not everybody in there, and maybe not the lower-ranking official, but I believe a lot of government officials, people in power, politicians specifically, work with the devil. They work with demons, shaitan, antichrist, dajjal, whatever name you want to put on it. They work with evil. And going back to the military thing, my uncle actually spent 15 years in the Air Force and used to tell us all the time that things are coming out of the water, that these dark, evil, demonic-like creatures. Now, he didn't say demons specifically, but he always described evil and not good. Really put emphasis on how these things were bad. They were bad news, and they were always coming out of the water all the time. That's where he was able to see them and pick them up on different instruments that the Air Force uses. Now, I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the hadith that talks about how Iblis, his throne is upon water, and he commands legions of demons, and they come back and report back to him. So that's pretty hardcore right there, but what do other things say? Well, the big one that I noticed in Christianity in the Christian text talks about the abyss. Well, the word abyss actually comes from abyssos. The root word of abyss is abyssos, or where we got it from. And abyssos actually means the deep, the dark, the bottom of the ocean. And so there's multiple places where the Bible says abyss, abyssos, and it's referring to the deep, dark bottom of the ocean. And it's never in a positive context either. It's always a negative thing. And what's crazy is in Luke 8:31, demons beg Jesus to not send demons to the bottom of the ocean, not to send them to the abyss. Now that points to the fact that demons don't want to be trapped there, that it is a place where they are imprisoned. Now, this ties into the jinn as well, because we all know that the jinn is described as the smokeless flame, the smokeless fire. Well, did you guys know that there is burning rivers of lava underwater? This is fire that creates no smoke because it's in the bottom of the ocean, in the abyss. And not only that, it is trapped there. It can't come up. It is stuck there forever. Now, you guys can feel free to yell at me for cherry picking on this one, but in Quran chapter 3, verse 103, this talks about the brink of the abyss, that somebody's being pushed to the brink of the abyss. And it talks about division, that you shouldn't be divided, that brothers and sisters should come together and stop fighting with each other. And when we fight with each other, we're pushed to the brink of the abyss, and God brings us back together, puts our division separate. But it uses the abyss also as a negative connotation. Now, this is through the Picthrall translation. I believe I pronounced that right. Now in Revelations 20, back into the Bible, it talks about how an angel locks Satan in the bottom of the ocean, in the abyss, for 1,000 years, that this is a place of their imprisonment. And also in Revelations 13:1, it talks about the beast rising from the sea. Now that really is similar to the hadith talking about how Iblis puts his throne upon water, that this beast is above the sea, is sitting on top of the sea. So it seems that the devil at one point in time, or is now, was trapped in the bottom of the ocean, and whenever he comes to the top of the sea, that's when he's at his strong point. That's when he's able to send demons out. That's when he's able to attack. So it's either the devil was at the bottom of the ocean, is at the top today causing a bunch of mayhem, or is still at the bottom of the ocean and was at the top at some point in time. That's up to you to decide. I can't tell you what to think. I can just provide the information for you. Now, I'm sure you guys are thinking like, Draven, why does this even matter? Who cares where the devil's at? He's all over the place. Sure, fair. You're right. You are correct. But I don't like that there's this misinformation that we're taught from day one. Well, I was personally, that the devil's just underground. I remember as a kid thinking about it all the time, that the devil's below my feet. He's in dirt. That hell is in dirt, but it's not. And this didn't sit right with me. For some reason, one reason or another, we have been misinformed. And we are taught that the devil's in dirt, but he's actually in the bottom of the ocean. And any time that there's a mass amount of misinformation and a mass believing in something that's not true, I always wonder why. I get very curious. I don't know why I get so curious, but I do. And I ask questions why. It's like, why do we think he's in dirt, not the ocean? Now, is it to put us in a position where we let our guard down, where we don't pay attention, we don't think about these things? Because if the government started just digging holes in the dirt, a lot of us may be thinking they're trying to find hell, they're trying to find the devil. But if they're sitting in the middle of the ocean trying to go to the bottom, we're not going to just assume they're trying to make contact with anything evil, especially if we believe that he's in dirt. Our guard would be completely down. So that's one of the questions that I have is like, well, why? Is it because of this? Is it because we won't be noticing anything that they're doing? And then my brain wanders a little bit further and thinks, well, have they already done it? And then I started digging and I was like, wait, they have. They've already been down there. They've already been doing research. And not only that, the research was covered up due to sabotage. So there's a lot of biblical and religious texts that point to the devil being in the ocean. And then our government goes into the bottom of the ocean and then covers up what they found and causes sabotage and ends the life of Navy members to hide this. So what did they find? And why did they have to cover this up? It just gets too weird at that point. And if all this is true, it's up to you to decide. But if all this is true and that the devil's in the ocean and the government went there and they got contact with them, why? What did they do with them? Did they make a deal? Did something happen? Did something negative? Are we now scared of it? Now do we have a deal with the devil to stay out of it? Then I get left with a multitude of questions that I'm not allowed to answer, and I'm not allowed to make bold statements on here or else the video will get taken down. But what I'm saying with this last little yap rant is that's why. That's why it's important, because there's a lot of weird stuff that's gone on. And anytime the government's involved in weird stuff, especially a situation where they're playing with where the devil might live, I think we should know that. And I think we should question it. And I think we should get some transparency, which we're probably never going to get. But at least when we have the information, we're not going to have our guard down. Now, real quick before you go, I got to tell you guys about something cool I got going on. I started a company called Mountain Blood. It is a shilajit line. Now, in case you're not aware and you haven't seen all the crazy ads about shilajit, it's a lot more potent and a lot more important than you guys realize. A lot of the marketing surrounding it puts it into like a sexual demeanor, and I kind of want to erase that from people. So yes, it has been used to increase fertility levels. This is very important for those of you who want to have kids, but if you're not trying to have a kid right now, it does have a lot more usage. The fertility is a great benefit, but it does a lot more than that. I'm not in my 20s anymore, but I feel better than when I did, and it is because of this. I've been taking it for the last few months, and it has been completely life-changing. It is packed, full and loaded with fulvic acid and over 85 different minerals. Now this means it removes toxins out of your body and gives you the building blocks to repair things. We all know our food is awful nowadays, and this is how we can fight back against the system and the poison they put in our body. It strips all these poisons, all these toxins out of our body and repairs it and puts it back together. Now, not only that, it is important for men and women. It is good for both. This is one of the best anti-aging supplements that you can take. And not only that, it is perfect for hormone regulation in both men and women. And because of the hormone regulation, it stabilizes our mood. The lift in the mood alone is enough for me to take this every day. I'm somebody who has always had a very short fuse, and it's gotten to the point where when I'm in traffic dealing with idiots, I'm laughing. I am genuinely laughing and finding the idiocracy hilarious. It is funny now to me. My patience level has gone through the roof. It has allowed me to get through life way better. Taking this stuff is the difference between just getting through the day and having the best day I've had in months. And I genuinely mean that, and I want you guys to give this a shot. Right now, I'm in the pre-sale. This is my third drop. It is sold out every single time. So there's about 40 jars left. So if you guys want to give it a shot, now is your time. Now, on top of it, because it's a pre-sale, there is 15% off. So I do got it discounted as well. You'll see it in the checkout. If you want some more information about shilajit and what it is and what it does, go to mountainblood.store. The landing page, I put some information up there for you guys so you can do your own research as well. That's all I got for today. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you guys next week.